Hello, you guys, welcome back. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here, and welcome to my series on emotions and on emotional processing. Today we're talking about sadness, and it will not be fun. It won't be fun at all. It will be sad, as if by design. Okay, first of all, I want to talk about what is sadness. I will talk about sadness as an emotion. Where does it come from? Yeah, it's not funny. And how to deal with it. How to deal with the sadness that is, lingering in our bodies from past experiences. And I'm going to talk about how to deal with sadness in like day-to-day life with the new experiences as well. Yeah. Okay. I have talked about this in previous videos on previous emotions in the previous weeks. About how you're gonna feel after you learn to process those specific emotions, the anger, the shame, the guilt, the anxiety and such. And it is going to be pretty much the same. You're going to feel more freedom. You're going to feel like you have more energy to focus on the current projects and just on your current life and on yourself and the things that bring you joy. And specifically with processing sadness, it will also help you to let go of past traumas as well. However, this specific episode is also really important because it's kind of like completing the puzzle. Because if you're using the exercises from all of the previous videos, including this one as well, this as a whole together, if you do all of these exercises, it's going to help you let go of a lot of pain, from the past and from any current events that are happening in your life, moving on, moving forward to the future as well. This is gonna be brilliant. It won't be fun in the moment though. All of this stuff, like really getting to know yourself that deeply and doing such deep work on very painful emotions is not gonna be fun. So this is just a warning, but do stay. Just stay. You will not regret this because this hard work pays off. Always. Okay, so to begin with, sadness is one of those basic emotions that everybody experiences. And sadness is an emotion of loss. Of course, everybody understands something different when it comes to loss. It's different things to other people. However, there are certain things that are kind of like universal to the understanding of loss. Okay, so the first category would be a loss of a person, or expectations of a person, loss of something, some kind of event, something ended in your life. It could be anything. Number two is all about yourself, and it's about kind of disappointment in yourself, having expectations about yourself and disappointment. We'll talk about all of these things, of course. And number three is about resources. It's about your resources, and this one is about exhaustion. It's about being tired, and it's an important moment as well. Of course, I will talk about these things in more detail. So it is very important to understand the reason you feel sadness in the moment, or the sadness that's coming from the past, in order to know exactly which tools to use to process it and let it go. So let's get into it. Okay, so let's start with the first category. When we're talking about losing a person, something ending in our lives, having expectations about something or someone, and something ending, basically. So the most important thing is that something happened that we cannot change. This is the whole point. And our goal here is to accept that, because we are not, capable. It's impossible to change the circumstances. So whatever happened, and now we have to accept that. So in this context, it's of course important to talk about all stages of of grief, it's usually called. It also can be called stages of acceptance. So yeah, to recap, I didn't talk about this in this series, but like I'm assuming a lot of people know about this, but it is going to be denial. Okay, hold on a second. Denial is a river in Egypt. So sorry. Okay, so the stages of grief are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Okay, so generally when we talk about depression, we talk about a diagnosis. So I will not be talking about depression here, but in context of this video, when we talk about sadness, sadness is going to be the stage that is usually referred to as depression in this like cycle. It shouldn't be a cycle, actually. No, that's the whole point. It should not be a cycle. You should go through every stage in order to process the emotion and let it go. So in this kind of like, God, what do you even call it? In the sequence of the stages. So when we talk about different stages of grief or acceptance, yeah, sadness is going to be the depression. So kind of like just to make it easy to understand. So yeah, the thing is that in order to accept something, you have to go through all these stages. You cannot skip the stages. You cannot pick and choose. You have to go through all of them. So this is where I would say that, you know, if you're starting with this video, I do strongly suggest you go back to the series and start with anger, because anger is the very first emotion. That's like the first difficult emotion that we have to process before moving on to everything else. Yeah, and as much as it is painful to go through all of these stages, I want to remind you, if you know this already, and if you don't know, just let you know that it is important to go through all of these stages, because if you do not do that, your psyche will keep putting you in situations that will put you in the same scenarios, so you experience the same feelings in different situations. Yeah, and if you do not process these feelings, it will become a cycle. It will not just be a sequence of emotions. It will not be just stages. It will become a circle. You will keep repeating these things until you release them, until you let it go. So, you know, you have to kind of understand that. And once you know that, you cannot unknow that, unfortunately, or fortunately so. So, you know, getting these tools will help you pretty much with all, you know, difficult life events. My voice was shaky there for a second. We are talking about hard things. That's okay. All right, so let's start with the first kind of like the first set of exercises. I want you to write down, of course, how can we not write anything here, you know? I want you to write down all of the, what is it? Yes, I want you to write down as much as possible, of course, as many as possible, important things, events, people in your life that you ever had, events that ever happened to you that were important to you that ended. Everything that was important to you that ended. Relationships, situations, things, event, all of those things. You might want to give yourself time. I want you to write things that don't seem that, you know, big maybe, but yeah, don't judge yourself. Write out everything as much as you can. Oh, and also that it doesn't have to be it's not just about tragic events, by the way, just anything important, anything that, you know, had any value to you, and maybe something you miss, but something that is no longer present in your day-to-day life. Now the second exercise, I want you to, you might want to use a timer for this one, but I want you to give yourself some time. It can be 15 minutes, it can be an hour, preferably every day, just a little bit of time every day to read this list and feel the sadness. You have to, I keep talking about this all the time, but that's only because it is that important. You have to let yourself feel these feelings, because if you don't let yourself feel them, you cannot let go of them. So it might be of use to set a timer, starting with maybe 15 minutes, maybe 10, maybe 5. you know, be gentle with yourself as well, and do nothing but just feel the sadness. Let yourself feel the feelings. And what I want you to do after that is basically journal about this. Basically write out what you think about this. What are your feelings at the moment about, you know, those events, you know, whatever happened, and how you feel about this in the moment, how you're feeling as you are feeling the feelings. So give yourself time to kind of basically journal about this. And yes, of course, if you want to cry, you have to cry. Now, how do we deal with sadness like that's happening today? Not something that happened in the past. This is not about the past at this point. How do we deal with whatever sad things that can happen to us currently? So kind of the same. However, there is a difference. Do not rush yourself. Well, you shouldn't rush yourself in the previous exercise also, but like this is where I don't recommend you put a timer, actually, because the feelings are more fresh. And the important thing here to remember is that the first stage of, you know, acceptance is going to be anger. So, you know, when it comes to current events, I do recommend you go back to the video on anger and you start with that, because you cannot start with sadness, really. You kind of have to go in order to, you know, really get into it and like really let go. So exercise. I want you to feel anger. Yeah. So you go back and you watch the video on anger. Okay, whatever. But exercise. I want you to write a letter to the person, or, you know, about the event that saddened you. This could be the angry letter exercise from the anger video, but it doesn't have to be. Don't censor yourself. And again, it depends on how angry you are, but I want you to write out kind of how you feel about this, addressing the letter to the person or to the situation that happened. But obviously, I don't think I have to say this at this point, but like you're not sending this letter to anyone, you're not showing this to anyone, you're only doing this for yourself. So do not censor yourself. Just let your feelings, let your emotions out, and write out exactly how you feel, as if you were talking to the person or addressing a situation. Let the anger out. Insults are welcome, by the way. Yes. After that, you can come back to sadness. I am smiling talking about sadness, but whatever. Yeah. After that, you come back to sadness and you do the same thing as you were doing in the previous exercise. Write out your thoughts about this event or situation that make you sad. If you want to cry, cry. Let yourself feel it and give yourself the time to feel it also. And yes, it might seem like it's all about journaling. It's not all about journaling. It's about letting yourself feel the things. But journaling really helps, though. It really helps. And yeah, of course, you'll have to give yourself as much time as needed. You might want to do this every day, but, you know, when it comes to the current events, I strongly recommend you start doing this as soon as possible. All right, now let's talk about sadness that comes from being disappointed in yourself. Yeah, that's a little bit more complicated because it also comes from anxiety, and it comes from shame. Go back, watch the previous videos on these topics. Okay, thanks. Yeah, but disappointment only comes from the place where you set really, really high expectations due to idolizing yourself. Now, idolizing yourself goes hand in hand with being disappointed in yourself, and these are not healthy patterns. These are not healthy things. These are also not mature things to do. You know, the goal here is to learn to accept yourself the way that you are and kind of go from there. Yeah, so again, this is just for general information. So yeah, basically we do have we set really high expectations for ourselves when we feel very extreme shame for ourselves. Like, we are so not good enough in our own eyes that we have to always aim for something really, really big and aim really, really high. And, this kind of mindset and these kinds of behaviors come from, you guessed it, childhood, of course, and from the way our family talked, our parents, or whatever, friends, I don't know, society, whatever we saw in media, whatever limiting beliefs were translated to us in the childhood, those things stay with us. And that's what leading to these kinds of patterns and behaviors eventually. Exercise time. Write out all of the expectations you have regarding yourself. Everything you expect from yourself, from the smallest to the biggest things. Write down as many things as possible. Now, analyze rationally, using facts, that is, right? How realistic are those things, considering the kind of person you are, objectively, okay? Try to be as objective as possible. How possible it is to achieve all these things, considering your abilities. Or it could be that, like, you want to achieve specific things by, certain dates, or you have a specific timeline of events. I want you to think in that case, because, those things could be very much realistic for you. Maybe they're not realistic to achieve by the dates that you set for yourself. So kind of think about that a little bit. Now, I want you to imagine the person that you love the most. Someone you care about, your best friend, a loved one. You get it. Imagine this person came to you and told you about these things. Imagine the person you love very much came to you and said that these are the expectations they have about themselves. They feel tremendous shame and they feel very deep sadness about not achieving these things, about not being good enough, about all of these things that you wrote down in your list. How would you react? How would you respond to them? Again, it's a person you love, so you're not going to be mean to that person, right? What are you going to say to that person? Next to every single thing you wrote out, I want you to write out a response, to the person you love very much, as if you are responding to someone who you love very much. I hope that makes sense. That should make sense. So basically, if someone you love very much comes to you and says how imperfect they are and how bad they feel about being so imperfect. So, of course, this is how you feel, but in order to teach you, if you have an issue with expressing kindness to yourself and like practicing self-compassion, it might be easy to, imagine that you are saying these things to someone who you love, because the goal here is to learn to talk to yourself like to someone you love. And basically, like, start building a new habit of talking to yourself like that whenever anything, hard or sad happens in your life. And okay, thanks. I got the mic again. Didn't get a mic. So yes, another goal is to learn to have a new reaction to the same trigger. And in a situation where you would normally like beat yourself up and feel this like deep shame and sadness, instead of beating yourself up for that and feeling, kind of making yourself feel even worse, I want you to learn to start talking to yourself with kindness and with compassion. And it will come over time. That's just how your brain works. You just have to make that a habit and start practicing it. Okay, now we're talking about sadness due to lack of resources, specifically about tiredness. So a lot of the times people actually confuse sadness with tiredness, especially when you put really high expectations on yourself and you do have all this anxiety and guilt and shame, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff, all these stuck emotions. And what happens is that you feel tired because that's what happens naturally after working or, you know, doing pretty much anything. And instead of giving yourself time to rest, you beat yourself up for it, and you feel like ashamed, and you can also feel deep sadness because you cannot continue, or you continue and it makes you even more exhausted, and that makes you feel physically and mentally unwell. So yeah, do ask yourself if you let yourself rest, which, by the way, resting is not the same as just like changing a type of activity you're doing. Resting is not like switching from work to like doing the dishes or washing the floor. I don't know. It's not that kind of stuff. Rest is doing nothing. Okay? Rest is doing nothing, and rest is productive. And you have to start understanding that. So, yeah. You want your nervous system to reset and to relax. So you have to do nothing. So exercise. I mean, I already kind of started talking about this, but whenever you feel sadness, I want you to ask yourself if it actually is sadness or if you're just tired. Because if you are tired, if the answer is yes, I want you to set a timer for, let's say, half an hour. It's up to you completely. And just lie down and do nothing at all. No scrolling, sorry. For that amount of time. Yeah. If when you're resting you feel a lot of anxiety and you feel basically if you feel anxious because you're not being productive right now, or like you think you're not being productive because rest is productive, and unfortunately it is common for a lot of people, ask yourself, if you're in any kind of hurry, ask yourself what's going to happen if you do not keep working non-stop. What happens if you give yourself a break and just let yourself rest? Like, what's going to happen? Allow yourself to feel the feelings that are coming up. Let yourself feel sensations in your body. Let yourself feel how, like, what your body feels when you are feeling these emotions. And go back and watch a video about guilt and shame, because I give a really good exercise, basically a body scan meditation. This is the exercise you would want to do in this moment if you're feeling like this, because the goal here again is to build tolerance to this feeling of shame and anxiety, and kind of like start letting go of it by letting yourself feel it. And by the way, yes, it can be really helpful also to think about any secondary like benefits you get for any benefits you're getting from like being stuck in the sadness. Really do think about that, like get deep about this. This is also kind of shadow work. What are you avoiding by feeling a lot of sadness, you know, all the time, especially if you feel like you're stuck in it? Like, do you feel like if you're feeling sad, you like give yourself permission to not do anything at all? Do you feel like just being sad sort of keeps you in a freeze mode, and maybe people are being more sympathetic towards you? Maybe this is the feeling where you feel safe because, again, it's more familiar to you. Think about what it is that you're afraid of that is on the other side of that sadness. Like, what's going to happen? What are you afraid of if you kind of allow yourself to let go of that? Like, do you have any fears about that? There's just some questions to think about. Like, are you afraid of some kind of responsibility maybe, and you're just keeping yourself stuck in that? And that can also be the case with some other emotions, and that's just a good thing for like to think about in your, you know, journaling sessions or something like that. That doesn't have to necessarily be the case for you, but it could be. It's interesting to think about. All right, before I get to the exercise that is, by the way, going to incorporate all of the emotions I have been talking about so far in this series, it's important to talk about the inner voices of sorts. You might have heard about expressions like your inner child, or maybe your inner parent as well. So I'm going to be using like this terminology. So we can assume that Every person has an inner child, an inner parent, and an inner adult. Now, your inner child can be people-pleasing, your inner child can be scared and anxious, your inner child can be, reckless and raging, and it can also be free and happy. Now, your inner parent. Your inner parent can be critical and it can be supportive. Inner adult is rational. Your point, and again, when I'm talking about all of these different things, these are like, all of these things are different parts of you. It's not the case that you are your inner child or something like that. That's not what that means. We can look at it as different fragments of ourselves, and the point here is to accept these different things and to help ourselves deal with difficult situations. And when it comes to all of these characters, so to say, we want to keep our inner child happy and free. We want to keep our inner parent supportive, and the inner adult is the rational one, and that adult should also be present. So this is the exercise that you're gonna do. Number one, whatever you're feeling in the moment, if you're feeling a hard emotion, again, we're kind of like talking about all of the things that I've talked about before. Identify the emotion you're feeling. It could be anything from the previous videos, including sadness as well. Then I want you to write down the thoughts of the inner child. So how is the more vulnerable, more wounded part of you feels about this? After this, write down what can your supportive parents say to your inner child about this? How can the inner parents support the inner child? After that, what can an inner adult say to the child, the rational inner adult say to the child? And also, what can this rational adult say to your inner parent if your inner parent is being critical and not supportive? So that's a really good practice to keep in mind, and to keep practicing, over and over again until it really becomes a good habit and you learn how to deal with all of these complicated emotions. This is basically it. This is a pretty detailed guide to how to deal with your emotions, how to process them, and how to let them go. Yeah, I really hope you found this helpful. And I mean, I know that I found this really helpful. This is, in my opinion, really valuable information. I know that a lot of people would find it, would hopefully benefit from it. So yeah, I really hope that you found this helpful, and thank you so very much if you made it to this part of the video, if you made it to the end of the video. Thank you so very much. I appreciate you so very much. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I put a lot of effort into my videos. I really hope that you like them, and I really hope you find value in them. I'm asking you to please leave comments down below and tell me what you think about this. If you have any other thoughts, if you have any comments, if you have any suggestions, if you also have any other methods to deal with your complicated emotions in a healthy, ethical ways, plural. So yeah, thank you so very much, guys, and I will see you in the next video where I will talk about the very last emotion, which, you guessed it, is jealousy, and I'll talk about this more in the next video. Thank you so very much.